Hello everyone. Welcome back to the very first episode of Paragon. I know it doesn't make sense, but you know what? That's okay, because I'm a fan of paradoxes and paradigms and Paragon, and anything with para is pretty cool. Anyways, patch V42 has just dropped, and I'm thinking, hey, now's a great time to start making Paragon videos. And what's a better starting point than the starting point for every match? So, I'm going to outline how I approach deck building in V42. Alright, so I got a request from a friend to make a Countess deck for him, so I'm going to do that right now as a visual representation as I'm building this deck. Okay, so the first step in building a deck is having a clear goal in mind, and you can either choose a role and then character, or character and then role. So in this case, I've chosen character first. I want Countess. Now I have to decide what role I want her to play in. I'm going to say I like assassin in the jungle or offlane. The other possibility would be, say, I want to play an assassin in the jungle. Which character do I really want to specialize this in? Well, probably either Countess or Kalari, and maybe it's open for both, or maybe I still want to specialize in one of them. But you need to have that goal in mind. Alright, so going over affinities really fast here. Go check out my other affinity video for a more in-depth explanation of each of them, but to recap from left to right, growth really excels late game, attributes are heavy in vitality, and then agility, and then intellect, and uses gold pretty heavily. This is awesome for junglers and off lanes, and remember, solo survivability. Moving on to knowledge, mid to late game, very heavy in intellect, and then agility and vitality are pretty even, but also pretty heavy in gold. Very good for mid lanes and carries, however, Font of Experience is fantastic for off lanes all by itself. And remember, amping abilities. Order, good for the mid game. Heavy in agility and vitality. Intellect is a little left behind, but is still there. This is fantastic for supports and also for junglers. Defensive domination really explains it very well. As for death, early to mid game, it excels. Very heavy in intellect. Alright at vitality and a little bit worse at agility, but it does exist. This is amazing for assassins, and carries can really benefit from it as well. So I call this one the ethereal espionage affinity. Chaos, really good at early game, dominates the early game, very high agility stats, vitality is pretty high, intellect is pretty low. This is awesome for carries, quite good for assassins, and punishing power really exemplifies it, I find. So, as for a Countess deck, I'm going to choose Knowledge and Death. The reasoning for this being that Knowledge actually has a lot of ability damage, perks on it, as well as Font of Experience is really good for off lanes and for jungles. So that is going to be a fantastic early game, and the ability damage late game is going to be awesome. Death is really to specialize in that assassin build, which is good in the offlane as well, but we'll get to that more later. Alright, moving right on. Keeping this goal in mind, choosing new deck. I'm going to build Knowledge and Death. Alright, first off, we need to choose attributes. Alright, so agility, not that useful for Countess because she does not specialize in basic attacks. She really is strong with her abilities. She uses tons of mana, and health from vitality is never bad. Plus the cards I kind of want, I'll get to that, have vitality beside them, like the Shadow Dancer. Alright, the reason I know what cards I want is because I've already looked out for and identified key cards. And the way I identify key cards is looking at cards and trying to decide who would get value from them. Shadow Dancer, who would get value from it? Someone who's trying to be an assassin, someone who's ganking, not as much someone who, like a support. Not as much value, right? How often do you get value? Well, an assassin is pretty much looking for those key picks as often as possible. So something like that, very often, that adds the value immensely. Do the attributes fit my character? High intellect, vitality, no agility. Yes, that fits quite well. And does it change my kit and how I play it all? Adding invisibility to Countess essentially is adding something new to her kit. That changes it immensely. That's a very key and important card for the late game. Alright, so I've gone through and identified key targets, or key cards I should say, and I know that, let's scroll back down there. Hold on. I know that I want lots of intellect and a bit of vitality. The way I can tell is the other key cards I've identified are Sleeper Agent, which is 10 intellect, and Plague of the Malenk, which is 8 intellect and 4 vitality. So now if we tally this up, 8 intellect plus 10 plus 6, that's 24 intellect. 3 plus 4 vitality is 7 vitality. So we are going to be heavily weighted towards intellect, right? So we're going to build 25 intellect and 7 vitality. The rest of it, sure, we can put into vitality, increase that health. Fantastic, but heavily weighted towards intellect. The other option when building a deck would be to weight evenly, right? Say, for example, you want Black Ice Routine with Corrosive Walker. Great, that's 4 plus 8, and 8 plus 4, that's 12 and 12. That's a pretty even build between vitality and intellect. Together, that's 24 points, so that's essentially the same as going 25 intellect. So either weight heavily for one, or weight relatively evenly for both. This is very important later when we get to gems, but just keep it in mind now. You want those cards to fit. For example, I would not throw Black Ice Routine in for late game, even though it is vitality and intellect, because it's too high vitality and doesn't utilize my high intellect that I'm going to be building throughout this match. Alright, so first off, you start with early game. What's the first card you're going to buy as soon as you enter the match? For an offlane or jungler, if you have knowledge, affinity, go Font of Experience. This card's amazing. In the jungle, you'll get to level 3, which is important for junglers, like 30 seconds faster. It's amazing. You will out-level everyone else who doesn't have Font of Experience. For an offlaner, it's really important to get your level up high because you're not going to be getting lots of money. You probably won't get a lot of final hits, fighting against probably 2 people in your offlane. Font of Experience gets you that boost faster, and you can start pushing back. Alright, next, you want 1 to 2 other early game cards that you're going to purchase afterwards. This is kind of filling out your slots of 1 cost cards. I say 1 cost as in 1,000 gold, or 1 attribute points. So Taskmaster, still a 1 cost card in my mind. However, I would not use this card because it does not seem that good. 10% health every 100 seconds from a minion. Minions don't have that much health. You're not actually getting a huge benefit. Like 50 health for 50 mana. Oh well, regardless. I'm looking at other cards. Call the Weak is fantastic, but uses agility, advanced evolution, 1 intellect. I'm totally going to throw that in as my second early game card. However, there are no other real early game cards here that I want, and therefore I'm only going to go with 2 early game cards. What that really means is you're going to start pushing into your mid game even sooner, right? This is where you start purchasing cards that cost a little bit more but start actually influencing your final build a little bit more, such as the Mana Flow Acolyte. As soon as you have 3 intellect, you go back and you purchase this card, and then you can start purchasing intellect again afterwards. Countess uses tons of mana. I totally want this card to build mana and power. This is perfect for her. Get that right away for the 3rd card. Next, I'm gonna go down a bit more and I'm gonna grab Supply Sergeant. Mana Shout, good for allies, but it also gives mana to yourself. Countess, again, uses mana a ton, especially early and mid-game. She's always low on mana. Supply Sergeant will give you that little extra zip, so that way you can go finish your fight with your opponent if you need it. And then Invader Mage, in order to increase that bit of damage and really start being able to fight in the mid-game. Alright, next, late game. This is your 3 final cards. You want to choose your solid cards. These are the key cards that I chose out earlier. So I know that I want Shadow Dancer to change the kit of Countess to give her invisibility. This gives her an escape, but it also allows for massive ganks to really help other allies push lanes, or I can attack backlines in team fights. This is a fantastic assassin card. Okay. Sleeper Agent really lets me 1v1 essentially anybody. I can isolate a target, silence them, they can't do anything back, they take extra damage, and I can burst them with my abilities. Right? Sleeper Agent is amazing. It almost guarantees the kill every 45 seconds if they are by themselves. Finally, I'm going to go with Plague Lord Malenk. Yeah, Blight is kind of helpful, but that's not at all why I'm doing it. The move speed slow aura is going to be great, again, for one-on-one targets, because you can teleport in with Countess, slow them, they're not getting away from you, right? They can try running, but they are slowed by 120, which is pretty significant. You will be able to catch up to them, stay on your target, assassinate them, burst them, and get out of there again. As well, you cannot be pursued as heavily, so it also gives you an escape as an assassin. This goes very well with Shadow Dancer, and Sleeper Agent allows them to not catch up. So this is fantastic for catching opponents and escaping opponents, these 3 final cards. Alright, the rest of the fill cards are your flex cards. This is really what gives you variability in your deck, right? It either allows you multiple roles, such as we have here, Countess. Adding these other cards is going to allow me to either build offlane or assassin and still use the same deck for either. Or if you've already built a role, this is what allows you to really open up for multiple characters. So maybe you throw in a specialized card for each of them, one that doesn't help the other but really boosts that specific one. Or if you already know the role and the character, you can start building for adapting to your opponent, where say they have a tank instead of a squishy, you can add way more penetration. If they have a squishy with like no movement, they have a carry by themselves, you can really add movement abilities, catch up to them and burst them down. These flex cards really give you variability in your build. Alright, so the first flex card I'm going to choose is Awaken the Emmerich. It's a fantastic card with tons and tons of abilities. This is really good for shutting down tower pushes from your opponents, because they throw in all these minions, they start attacking the tower, you throw down Awaken the Emmerich, and all of a sudden all their minions are shooting them, the tower's shooting them, and the hero who used Awaken the Emmerich is also shooting them, or slashing them, you know, if they're a melee. Gotta be equal between everybody. That person is gone. You got that kill, and you saved your tower, right? So this is a good defensive card, but the real key here is allowing the swap to turn off Plague Lord Malenk. You're not planning on fighting anybody, you throw on Awaken the Emmerich, and now you can do what I call a tower gank, where an enemy hero is pushing up, say in your off lane they push up really heavily, you can get in behind and turn one of their minion groups, minion hordes, into your allies and push straight into their tower, right? This means that essentially the hero has to either turn around and come try saving their tower, which is probably too late, or they just abandon it, and that's an easy tower gank right there. So this is fantastic. If they have like a pesky tier 2 left, you can just kind of turn it around, jump into their tower and demolish it. This is amazing for Wukong. If you can get into a tower undisturbed for 10 seconds, you got that tower. You can take in Hibs, tier 2s, tier 1s. This is a fantastic flex card. I would not keep it around all the time though. Alright, next up I'm gonna go with Nameless Curse. This is a fairly high cost card, 12 attribute points total, and it does do 900 damage in total. However, it's over 18 seconds, which isn't very conducive to an assassin build, because assassins really want to burst. So my real goal of having this in my deck is to harass in the mid game. You push for this in the mid game and you're dropping 900 damage on an enemy. They have to back and your team can push up into that tower. If they don't back, that's an easy kill. So I'd say that's good mid game. By the late game where team fights are breaking out all the time, it's not going to be that helpful. Team fights lasting 18 seconds is kind of pushing it, and it's not going to be that helpful compared to the other final cards that we already have in this build. Next, Atomic Soldier, all the way back up here. This is going to really be the transition between mid to late game. I don't plan on keeping this forever, but say you want to get rid of Supply Sergeant because you have that 5 extra intellect. This is a good step up. It's good power, but by the end of the game, I'm already relying on the kit changers, not just the little bonus in damage. And then finally, Power Tap. If you have a knowledge affinity, you want Power Tap, right? You have 4,000 extra gold lying around. Say it's really pushing into the late game here. You unequip one of your cards, equip Power Tap, use it, re-equip that card that you unequipped earlier, and you're walking out of there with 15 extra power. You can do this as many times as you want in the match. This is a fantastic card. I highly recommend using it. Alright, so we've chosen our 12 cards. Next on, we go to gems. Alright, so this is where it's really important to know how you weighted your attributes, if it's either heavy and light or medium, right? So in this case, we have gone heavy and light, and so you start with your main, 1 through 5, and then your secondary, 1 through 3. If it's even, you go 1 through 4 in both, in whichever order you want. Intellect to vitality or vitality to intellect, doesn't matter. But I've gone heavy in intellect, therefore I'm starting with intellect, and you go through 3 times, okay? First time, you look for vital gems. Second time, helpful gems. Third time, filler gems. You always want 6 gems. There's no reason not to have them. Alright, so starting off with vitals. None of these are very vital. Auto Mana Potion only really gives you 22.5 mana. That's really not that good. Auto Shield's not great. Onslaught's not great. Deadly Mana, however, fantastic. Every kill giving you max mana. Beautiful for someone like Countess. Any caster should be happy to have Deadly Mana. That is totally something I consider vital. Mana Fountain is going to be huge, especially around the mid game when you're trying to get into fights all the time and you have no mana left. This is another one that I consider to be vital. Let's see. Mana per second, 24.8 mana regen. Let's go with that. Percent, not 24.8. That would be ridiculously good. Okay, I know nothing from here. And overpowered spells definitely do want. This is huge damage. This is going to allow for burst. Way more burst late game. This, you combine that with Shadow Dancer, you get in the backlines, you burst down their carry, no problem. Alright, I know I can go through 1 through 3. None of these are really vital to me. None of these are really vital. And none of these are really vital. I'm not even going to worry about 4 or 5 because I'm not planning on having that much vitality. Even number 3 right here is really pushing it. Having 13 vitality, that's like late game when you're already built and just adding extra vitality action after you've maxed out intellect. So really focus on 1 and 2. That's all the vitals I need. Let's go for helpfuls. These aren't really that helpful. They're not totally game-changing. They just kind of, be nice. For vitality, however, I don't really want any of these. They're not really game-changing at all. Armored, however, it's a nice bonus. Especially around the mid-game, that extra bit of damage can help you in 1v1s. Nothing else is really going to be that helpful. So then you start going through and looking for your filler gems. Alright. Intellect here. Auto Mana Potion. Yeah, it's not actually that great, but in the early game, if you're offlane, then that extra bit of mana can maybe help you out a bit. Just like in Vitality here, I'm going to go with Healing Towers, because again, if you're offlane, that early game, it gives you a little bit more sustain. You can hang around your tower, farm that experience. If you can freeze the enemy wave right in front of your tower, that's perfect, and it can keep you alive a little bit more. Alright. So we've got our gems and we've got our cards. Now you do a final review and check. Okay? You want to plan out a theoretical match and how you would build. So first, what's the first card you buy? Font of Experience. Perfect. Next, what are the rest of your early game cards? You want 2 or 3 total. Advanced Evolution. Alright, I have 2 early games. That means I'm going to really push for the mid game, which is fine because I'm going to throw in Mana Flow Acolyte. That's my, mid game start. And then Supply Sergeant to replace Invader Mage. Perfect. That's 3 mid game. Perfect. You want 2 to 3 total. And then you look for your final game. Shadow Dancer. Changes kit. Super good. Makes me an assassin. Synergizes well with my other finals. Sleeper Agent. Lets me 1v1 really well. Plague Lord Malenk. Awesome for those 1v1s and assassinating. That's 3 finals. Perfect. The rest is flex. Awaken the Emmerich for those tower ganks. Swap that out with Plague Lord Malenk. And then throw back. Perfect. Nameless Curse. Good for that mid game. Say you have some extra intellect before you can... I don't know. Before you can really purchase Sleeper Agent or something like that, maybe you can throw in Nameless Curse and really harass other lanes and help push them up. Atomic Soldier is really good for maybe pushing out Supply Sergeant and throwing in some extra power in mid to late game. Power Tap, just super nice late game. Adds that extra power. You never plateau. You can always keep growing. Gems, you have some vitals. You want to make sure you got your vitals. And then you got your helpfuls and your fillers. So you got some good gems, you're happy with them. The final step to deck building is choosing an awesome name of awesomeness. Now this is super important, right? Because a good name allows you to want to play with that deck, which allows you to want to play with that character or that role. This is good. It keeps you coming back and it keeps you getting better. And then you can build a better deck and so on and so forth. Anyways, the really important thing here is to keep that big goal in mind. Why did you build this deck? For me, I built this for Countess. The main goal is the character. Therefore, this deck's name should be relevant to that main goal. Therefore, this deck name should relate to Countess. I'm going to go with my old deck name, The Count. 1 body, 2 bodies, Alright. That's a good name. Makes me smile. I like playing it. This is a good deck. I'm good to go. Alright. Thanks for watching, guys. I did kind of go pretty fast through the affinity part, so make sure to check out that video if you want a more in-depth view of the affinities. I actually did a lot of analysis in them. I really recommend that video, and I'm going to be coming out with more builds in the near future, so maybe check back to see how I want to build those. Alright, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you had a great time, and I hope you keep having a great time here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Tschüss.